Hi class! This is going to be the video about reproductive isolation. This will be 1 in 2 videos. So what is reproductive isolation? Reproductive isolation means that there are going to be actual biological barriers that will prevent two different species from producing viable and fertile offspring. There's two different types of barriers. There's prezygotic and postzygotic. Prezygotic means before there is a zygote. If you recall, when the sperm meets the egg and you have fertilization happening, we have the formation of a zygote. So all of these prezygotic will happen before there is a zygote. One of these ways will prevent them from even attempting to mate. Another one, if they attempt, they won't be successful in mating. And the last one is if they successfully mate, there will be no fertilization. If we are blocking them from attempting to mate, there's 3 ways that this can happen. We can have habitat isolation, temporal isolation, or behavioral isolation. Habitat isolation is very simplistic. They don't live in the same area. So they have different habitats. One's over here, these are the others over here. They don't see each other. They don't try and mate. Very simple. Temporal isolation. Temporal means time. That means that they're going to mate at different times of the year, different times of the day. They're not going to be interested in each other at the same time. There's 2 different skunks in North America, the eastern skunk and the western skunk. The eastern skunk mates in the winter, and the other one mates in the summer. So western skunks will not mate with eastern skunks because they're not ready to mate at the same time of the year. So therefore, they're isolated, so they're separate species. Behavioral isolation. If you recall, we've talked about the cute little dance that the blue-footed boobies do. They kick their little blue feet up and they do the little blue-footed booby dance. If a species does not do the dance and they don't do it properly, the blue-footed booby doesn't want to mate with them. Therefore, they will not choose them and they're separate. They won't be able to mate, so they're separate species. All right. Now, if they attempt to mate, so if they find each other and they want to mate, there's 2 ways to prevent them from completing mating. We have mechanical isolation and gametic isolation. Okay? Mechanical, this means that the parts don't line up. So I use the example of 2 different snails. Their shells, they spiral in different directions, so the genital openings aren't lined up, so they can't get their genitals together, therefore they can't mate. You can also think of this in terms of why an elephant and a chihuahua don't mate, because the parts don't match up. These are actual mechanical barriers that prevent them, so they cannot get their genitals together properly to complete the act of mating. That's all on that. Gametic isolation, this is where the sperm and the egg, they're not compatible with each other. So we actually get a little bit in, but then they don't match up. In humans, there's a protein that's on the outside of the egg, and there's a protein on the outside of the sperm. They have to be the same and receptive of each other for the sperm to actually get into the egg. This is if they don't match up, they won't be able to fertilize the egg. Therefore, there's no reproduction there. All right, so postzygotic barriers. This is after a zygote has been created. So we had sperm enter into the egg and we have a zygote. But they're still not the same species because they're not producing viable and fertile offspring. So what we're looking at is reduced hybrid viability, reduced hybrid fertility, and hybrid breakdown. So the first one, hybrid viability, this means that the hybrid doesn't survive. It's feeble, it's weak, it doesn't live. There's a couple of different ones like that. Hybrid fertility, this is like the mules. You have a donkey and a horse, they produce a mule, but mules cannot reproduce. They are sterile, so therefore they have no fertility. So they are different species because they can't successfully reproduce more than one generation. Reduce hybrid or hybrid breakdown. This is where you have The first generation is viable. The first generation is fertile. So it seems like, oh, we're the same species. We're all good here. No. The hybrids, if they mate with each other, the next generation isn't viable. They die or they're sterile and they can't reproduce. So you only get one good generation, and after that, it falls all apart. All right, so this is all part of the biological species concept. This states that if it can mate and it can produce viable and fertile offspring, it's the same species. There are limitations to this. It can't be applied to any organism that is extinct because we can't observe their mating habits because they are extinct. Also, it can't be applied to anything that reproduces asexually because there's no mating with them. It's asexual. So they have different rules governing what is a species once it's been extinct or if it reproduces asexually. All right. Thanks for paying attention, and I'll see you guys next class period. Bye.